Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today we are watching a video featuring Rory Sutherland, who I believe is the real life wizard, a man who is in his late 50s, possibly 60s, cosplaying as a wizard. He reminds me of somebody who you would see in a Harry Potter film, like one of the head wizards, the teachers in that film. And it is why I believe this guy is popular. I believe this guy is popular because the way he talks, the way he is able to use his voice, the way he tells a story is very, very captivating and very soothing. There's something very reassuring about this guy. Okay, like, in a world where many people believe, you know um that everybody's racist. Okay, white men are racist. In a world where people believe that everybody's a fucking pedophile, like this guy, you could never label pedophilia at this guy. Okay, I don't believe Rory Sutherland is a pedophile. I don't believe he's capable of pedophilic thoughts, because he comes across as such a sweetheart. He comes across as such a nice guy, like a wizard, right? Like, and that's why I thought it was interesting. This guy, I've done this guy before, and because he's got some, he's got some great takes about the tax system. I believe the video done before was when he spoke about how people under the age of 30 should never get taxed, and people over the age of 60 or 50 shouldn't get taxed either, because like when you're young, when you're under the age of 30, you need that money in order to fund your life, to build a family, to buy a house. And when you're in later stage of life, if you're getting taxed too much, it economically doesn't make sense for you to carry on working. However, if you're not getting taxed, you have an incentive to carry on working so that you can provide for yourself, so you're not reliant totally on a state pension, right? Because even if you are on the state pension, if you haven't got a mega big pension fund, if you're just like an average 60-year-old, your pension, the state funded pension doesn't really cover your expenses. Okay, there's many elderly people in the UK who really suffer, because of the increasing living costs in the world. Okay, you know, there, there, there's a lot of old people. I don't mean to laugh. I don't know why I just did, but there's a lot of old people who basically who suffer throughout the winter because they rather not put the heating on, um, and and live in a cold house because they can't afford to put the heating on. Okay, I mean, it's a very sad state of affair. Despite me laughing at it, like I didn't mean to. I don't know why. I've got the giggles for some reason. Happens sometimes. Fuck it. But Rory Sutherland is somebody who he's got some great insights, some great knowledge. But I also think he's only successful because he gives off the vibe of somebody who can be your uncle, who can be this wizard, this large than life character, literally out of a fairy, a fairy tale. Okay, like you can imagine him, being some type of character in Snow White. You can imagine him being some type of character in Lord of the Rings, right? Like, I am surprised he is not an actor. He even looks like an actor. I can't think of the name I'm trying to think of. I believe he actually looks like the person who plays Gollum or Smeagol in Lord of the Rings. That actor, right? There is some type of resemblance that he shares with Rory Sutherland. Okay, I can't think of for the life of me what that person's name is, but um, he does give off this whimsical vibe. Okay, and it's also reflected in the way he dresses. It's also reflected, but the main thing is the way he tells stories. Okay, like, whatever you think about this guy, you cannot knock the way that he has a grasp of his own voice. Okay, the instrument that he narrates, curates his stories. Okay, the way that he it's the cadence of his voice, and the deep tone. It's not that deep as in like Barry Manilow, but there is this little rhythm to it. You can imagine him in Lord of the Rings, in Game of Thrones. Let's jump in. Let's listen to this guy's voice.
Now, I'm going to be completely honest. What I'm talking about here is
And you know, when somebody is completely honest, already your defenses just go down, right? Like he is somebody who, you know, many people find very relaxing to listen to. Okay, like a lot of the time, if you actually listen to it, right, like he's trying to make a point. He goes off into different tangents. You know, he'll tell you like little anecdotes about little different things that he's read across the many years that he's been in business throughout his life. And then you know he kind of weaves it together, but it's a very loose thread that he's pulling, right? He goes all over the shop, okay, and he's got some great ideas, you know, some random not so great ideas. Some ideas are just plainly just common sense that he's kind of reworded, and because it is common sense and you just listen to him, you like and you agree with him, yeah, like that's a good point. Like of course it's a fucking good point because everybody knows that that is a good point because it is just common knowledge, right? But it is the way that he projects himself that makes you think that wow, what an amazing guy, which I believe is why he is so popular.
not my idea. But I've suddenly decided that as a marketer, one of the most valuable things you can do, and this borrows, I think, a little bit on Taz's work, is give storytelling appeal to other people's good ideas.
Give storytelling appeal to other people's ideas. Isn't that what he's doing? Do you think? Like, I reckon this guy, all he does is he's, you know, I mean, he works for Ogilvy, Ogilvy, whatever, right? He works in the behavioral economics department, I believe, the behavioral, you know, behavioral psychology department. How consumers, you know, interact with the product, with a company, with the branding, with the marketing, and he looks into the psychology, and it is quite, I believe it is quite data, you know, data analytically driven, the research that he does, the things that he looks at, okay, and tries to find patterns and comes up with reasons why and how to better help companies, you know, reach, you know, their product to, you know, and gear it towards their target audience, right? So that is in essence what this guy's doing. um but he basically reads a lot of scientific papers, and reading like a, you know, a university peer reviewed paper is kind of boring, right? What this guy's ability is, what he has got down to a T, is the ability to take mundane analytical facts and weave it into a quite whimsical story where you're just like, you know, whatever the fuck you're doing, you're just willing to listen to this guy and be like, you know, and it kind of puts you back into this space where you are in primary school, where you are in you know, like a 8, 9, 10-year-old, you know, listening to your teacher read like a story. Okay, it's like story time, right? This is the effect of his voice, and you know, this is, if you're somebody who's making content, if you're somebody who is, you know, who wants to, you know, have similar sort of ability to orate, um, to captivate an audience, it has to be able to, yeah, you have to be able to do what this guy's doing, right? He is a worthy case study for us to research.
My wife is currently at communion at the cathedral. She's a vicar. I'm here taking care of the mammon. She's taking care of the...
Of course this guy's wife is a vicar. Like it kind of makes sense. Do you get what I mean? Like already, like I believe he lives in Kent as well. He's his parents were Welsh, so he grew up in Wales, I believe. um like this guy, like there's nothing threatening about this guy. He's very, there's something almost spiritual about him, and it kind of makes sense that the fact that his wife is a vicar. I believe, you know, he obviously, like a vicar, right, isn't going to marry some, you know, absolute hedonistic, you know, I mean, Harvey Weinstein type of guy, is she? Right? Like she's going to pick someone with high moral values, somebody who is trustworthy, who is, you know, who has, I mean, good morals, who has, you know, basically on a very basic level, who's good vibes, right? Like a vicar, and if you're not from England, like a vicar is somebody, is like a high priest, a female priest, right? And a female priest isn't going to pick somebody who is, who, you know, a piece of shit, basically. Okay, so already like there is some, um, you know, like some social proof there, right? Like that 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 a vicar, right, that a female priest, has chosen this man to be her husband, right? So this guy already has social proof that he is a good person, and you just get that vibe from him that he is a nice guy.
God. And occasionally she gives me a hard time for working in advertising and marketing. And I
I mean, his wife gives him a hard time for working in advertising and marketing. What does a vicar do? Like a vicar is basically the advertising agency, the marketing department, right, for Jesus Christ, for God, right? Is that not what a vicar, a priest, an archbishop, right, a pope, like what are all these, a cardinal, what are all these things for? They are the marketing department, okay? They are the communications desk, the PR firm, right, of religion, of God, right? So the fact that these two people have formed a relationship together, to me, makes sense. So a vicar giving a hard time to her husband for being in advertising doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense for me, right? She should be giving a hard time. It kind of actually makes sense that they're together, because they are doing the same type of work from different angles, right? Or one works, what one is selling religion, the other person is selling, British Airway flights, okay, Cadbury's chocolate, right? Whatever, um I'm sure, like Marlboro, Pall Mall cigarettes, right? Like there is something that kind of makes sense for this man who converts, um you know unfounded, unclaimed customers to come and, delve into his brand, whereas a priest does the same thing, who collects wandering sheep, wandering souls to come follow the one true God, in her in her case being, the one Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay, let's jump
have the
back in.
perfect riposte, which is, well, you can criticize marketing all you like, but no one would have heard of Jesus if it hadn't been for St. Paul.
There you go. I mean, I mean, he made the same point as I just did, right? So, again, he's very clever. The way he comes at it, and the way he even delivers it, is very cheeky. It's very tongue in cheek. But it's very soft and friendly as well. Okay, it's somebody who instantly disarms you. And the fact that this guy, is wearing a multi-colored, flannel V-neck, okay, over a blazer, underneath he's wearing a red shirt. His hair is disheveled, clean shaven. Big beer belly, right? Like he's obviously, um he didn't buy into the marketing for a gym, but the way that he comes across, right, is very disarming. And even the fact that he's got his hands behind his back, right? Like in most cases, when someone's got the hands behind the back, there's something sneaky about it. With this guy, there's not. It's kind of like, he is a safe character, right? You would literally leave your fucking children around this guy. Like, he is that safe. No woman would ever be threatened being around this man.
And many, many good ideas don't just need someone to have them, they need someone to tell the story. But Darwin needed Huxley, for example. And I think one of the most valuable things we can do is actually take great ideas which we think have been unfairly neglected, the kind of also-rans, the things that never quite made it, and just try and make them more famous. That's also true of technology, by the way.
So ideas, taking ideas that haven't caught on in the mainstream, basically, you have to kind of make them famous, right? Like that, and that's what marketing department does, right? That is what advertising does. They take a product that the common man in the industry, that the world hasn't really found a need for it, and then the advertisers, the marketers' job is to kind of, communicate what this product is, why you need it, and why you should buy it, right? Um, and something like water, for example, doesn't really need marketing behind it, because everybody needs to fucking drink water. But when it comes to premium water, why should you spend more money on something that's premium compared to the like the shit that comes out your tap? Is because of the story behind it, of the reason of where this water comes from. Evian, for example, right, one of the biggest water brands in the world. The water comes, from the top of the mountain of the Alps, right? Therefore, the water is more pure. Therefore, the water is more cleaner for you to consume.
I think one of the best things you could do with technology is become a technology archaeologist, which is to go and look at things which narrowly missed it, often for quite arbitrary reasons. You won't realize this, but there was a period at the beginning of the last century where the electric car almost became the standard mode of transportation. There was a three-way kind of runoff between steam, electricity, and the internal combustion engine. The internal combustion engine, by the way, is by far the most complicated of those three modes of propulsion. Part of the reason electric cars may have failed, actually, is that at the time they were seen as female. Because they were quiet and very, very clean and didn't require a beefy person to wind a starting handle, they were actually seen as girly cars, which in the early part of the 20th century wasn't a great way to market cars. And indeed, Henry Ford marketed cars by racing them very heavily. So that business of actually taking ideas that nearly made it and thinking, do they deserve a second chance, strikes me as a perfectly worthwhile thing to do.
And I believe that this is why this guy is successful. Okay, he explores ideas that are, you know, very clever, ideas that might be useful, and he kind of just rebrands them in the way that he speaks. Okay, like this guy, you know, I don't know what it is. Is it the size of his fucking frame? Is it the size of his lungs? You know, he's got this very bassy voice. You know, I know he smokes, for example, like that. That always adds, you know, an extra bit of oomph to your fucking voice, an extra bit of bass to your voice. But it is something that he is the person who could only communicate these ideas, right? Like you could have a you know, just a normal scientist, a normal Nobel, you know, behavioral economics, you know, telling you the same shit, and it wouldn't stick because, you know, that it is the way that he has presented himself. Okay, I mean, just look at what he's wearing. Okay, look at the way that he is communicating to you, right? And like, I mean, I'm from England, okay, and this guy's got a British accent, okay, but there's also, you know, the way his level of uh his accent, you would kind of call it like the Queen's English. Okay, he sounds like a posh English gentleman, right? And you're also listening to him, and it gives you, you know, that feeling of someone from Downton Abbey, right? So if you live in America, if you live anywhere else in the world apart from the UK, you know, listening to this man already gives him some sort of authority because he doesn't sound like an average American. He sounds like a posh Brit, okay, a posh Englishman, right? An English gentleman, right? So when you listen to him, you're like already you're giving up some authority just because of his accent, right? So it is a culmination of how this person presents himself, which is important for when you make your content. Okay, depending on what type of content it is, you also need to have a type of rhythm to your voice, a type of cadence to your voice, where people are willing to just, you know, just kind of submit to your voice. Okay, they're willing to listen to be like, you know, this guy could fucking read off the ingredients off the back of a can of tomato soup, right? And he's talking, you know, he's like, okay, like 60% tomatoes, water, sugar, you know, vinegar, onions, onion powder, you know, like, and then GBH, like whatever, GBH, like any the next level chemicals, whatever you fucking put into it, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You kind of, he puts you into a trance. He puts you into an easy mode to listen to him, which is why I believe he is successful. Which is why what I believe he is the one who is every fucking where, because this guy is literally everywhere on my fucking algorithm on my For You page at the moment. Let's jump into comments. Mogmax is United, friend of the show. I hope you're doing well, Mogmax. Cannot wait till you start making content again. I am looking forward to your big comeback. This fella looks like my this fella looks like my dad. Yeah, man. I mean, he is a handsome fella. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, he is a handsome person. But the thing is that he just seems like a very genuine guy, a guy that you can trust. You know, and if your dad looks like him, I bet your dad, you know, many people like him, many people respect him. He is somebody who is also very likable, very trustworthy. You know, and it is just the way that he comes across. You know, he doesn't seem like a threat. So, you know, that's cool, man. That's a great quality that your father has. You know, tell him, show him this video, show him the video of this guy. If you go to the description of this video, you'll get the link to the original video. You know, play it for your father. The guy's name is Rory Sutherland, and just show it to him. They might be related. You never know, right? Like that you two, you might be related to this guy. let's jump back into the video.
So as I said, what I'm talking about is not my idea. It's the idea of a guy principally called Nicholas Gruen, who's my kind of economics Svengali. He's an Australian economist.
So this guy, obviously he's giving you some fucking source here, right? Basically, he doesn't come up with all these speeches, all this information off the top of his fucking head. He's obviously clearly read it somewhere. He's obviously clearly, learned it from somewhere, and then he connects it in his own way, and retells it in how he understands that information. But if you ever concede the point, if you ever concede the fact that somebody else came up with a theory, somebody came else found that information, you like it kind of makes you irrelevant, okay? Which is why even though you might have read something somewhere else, you need to rephrase it in a way that you understand it, a way that makes sense to you, and then it becomes your own. Right? It's the same way as you when you copy somebody else's homework. You read what they have said, but you reword it in a way that would sound like if you fucking came up with it yourself, right? And that is what you need to do when you're becoming a subject matter expert, because you don't want to go and give no credit to anybody else, right? You need to create the credit for yourself, because also there is credit to be had, taking someone else's idea, okay, but consuming it and making yourself understand it. Okay, like if you think about it, like everybody has access to the internet, everybody has access to Wikipedia. Like you could Google any fucking genius thing that anybody's ever come up with, right? But you need to consume it and make yourself understand it, right? So already, if you're able to do it and it is different from what somebody else came, like it is useful information. Like it is kind of unique, because you are a unique person, and to make yourself understand it, you had to rearrange the words, you had to retell that same story to make yourself understand it. That is why you deserve some of the credit, right? Some of the credit should go towards you, but yeah, unless this guy's dead, him kind of admitting where his information came from discredits himself a little bit.
Wonderful guy. By the way, if you want intellectual stimulation, go and look to Australia. And the reason for that, I think, is quite simple. That by being isolated, Australian thinkers kind of evolve in isolation, a bit like Australian flora and fauna. And as a result, you kind of get, kangaroo minds. The weirder kind of ideas often arise from isolated places. If you ever get a chance to go and see an Icelandic economist, go along and see what they have to say. So this is very much Gruen's idea, with a little bit of help from Henry Tudor. And then,
so do you see what this guy did there, right? So he take this scientist or behavioral economics theory, and he mixes it with Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor, obviously, being Henry VIII, probably the most famous English king that's ever lived. Famous for having 6 wives, 7 wives, 6 or 7 that he beheaded, a couple of them that he imprisoned, a couple of them that he killed, a couple of them died in childbirths, etc. And one ended up surviving. He had 3 different children, which created the War of the Roses. Elizabeth the First father. He is, the quite essential, stereotypical, the most proud English king that Britain has produced. I'm really trying to think of who else it would be. I mean, William the Conqueror, 1066, who, kind of is like the founding father of the royal lineage within England. Richard III, but is that because of I'm thinking because of the Shakespeare play? George the Fourth, George the Fifth. I think Henry VIII is literally the face of the British monarchy. He is, him, Elizabeth the First, Queen Victoria, Elizabeth the Second. These are the best known monarchs within British history. Okay, so he takes something, this guy, his ideas and what his love about, he mixes it up with this, and it's like a remix. Okay, like if you think about it, like Kanye West as a producer, okay, like his big hit was Through the Wire when he first started. Through the Wire takes a sample of Shaka Khan, Through the Fire, right? mixes it to make it sound like it's saying through the wire, creates his own record and it raps over it, speeds it up, makes it sound like a chipmunk, right? Create the record goes global, right? But he remixed and sampled something somebody else made, right? But Kanye West gets all the credit. Okay, so in that same way, you can use other people's information, like a rap producer, right, and remix it to make it fit your narrative. Okay, take bits from everywhere, put it together, and it becomes something new, which is what we are all about. We are here to delve deep into our life purpose, to be seen as subject matter experts, to be seen as people who are able to take different bits of information to come up with something brand new, a new take, a new sound, something to help people, taking old information and making it relevant for the new generation, for where the world is headed towards now. This is why we stay winning. This is why we are the ones who deserve to rule the world.
Let me explain actually first with a little bit of an example. Okay, some of you may be interested in driverless cars. I'm interested in driverless cars. I think there are very big problems to do with.
I mean, when this guy says he's interested in driverless cars, you know what I mean? He is any reason not to do like the thing, right? Like he is, looking for every fucking shortcut to, not be involved in the actual, heavy lifting of the situation.
Driverless cars, not least that a driverless car with a bomb in it is kind of indistinguishable from a cruise missile. I think there are huge issues of, for example, what will happen if driverless cars always stop for pedestrians, which is that pedestrians will dick them around, okay? And so driving through a city centre in a driverless car will be an unbelievably painful experience because people will just walk blithely straight in front of you. I think there are a lot of problems, but I think it's interesting. But I think there's another interesting aspect of driverless cars, which is for some weird reason, the software guys in Silicon Valley have all assumed that this is a problem we have to solve on our own. We have to produce a standalone car which, without any tinkering with road infrastructure, the way traffic lights work, the way roundabouts are designed, the way lights display to other road users that the car is actually driverless, so they can give it a bit of extra room and space on the road. Now, it'd be much.
I like the fact that as this guy is talking, like he kind of like stops and just gives he kind of laughs at his own jokes just to cue up the audience to also laugh, right? So he's like, a driverless car driving through, the town center, and all these pedestrians are driving through. Like, I think it will make it kind of hard. It's also encouraging the audience to join in and laugh at something that's not even that funny, right? But he wants people to laugh because just to release some tension, right? And as they're laughing, it kind of like it puts your brain into a trance. It puts you into this, very easy, relaxed state, kind of hypnotic. You're being hypnotized by his voice, by his story, so that you walk away from the situation, okay? Not really listening to what this guy has said, but walking away knowing how this guy has made you feel. And what did he make you feel? He made you feel very at ease, very relaxed, very safe, right? You didn't feel tense or anxiety or anxious, right? Or depressing or depressive. Listening to this person, you felt very positive emotions, listening to this person. So you're always going to be, very positive towards him, right? You're always going to feel very positive towards him, right? And then what happens is, I think his long-term strategy is this, right? He wants to be famous, not because he wants to be recognized by people, okay? But he wants to be famous, right? Because when he walks into a meeting, right, or for example, like Rolls Royce, okay, like somebody goes to him, we've hired Ogilvy to be the head of advertising for the next Rolls Royce set of adverts that we do, right? No one gives a shit. They're like, yeah. This extra expense, this marketing expense that we have to fucking do. And they're like, oh yeah, it's Rory Sutherland. You know that guy that you've seen who sounds like a fucking wizard from Harry Potter. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit excited. You're like, oh yeah, I've listened to that guy. Yeah, I wonder, that's fucking cool. That's really cool, isn't it? Isn't that cool? Right? You kind of get excited about it. because you recognize him from the things that you've seen of him online. So he is everywhere right now. He is, going viral. He's on every fucking podcast, all over the internet, to the point of where people don't actually see him as somebody who is an advertising executive, that he is a behavioral economist. He is actually, famous for being a podcaster or podcast guest. And that is how some people introduce him, as one of the most famous podcast guests in the world. Okay. And that is what you need to cultivate for yourself, to be seen as a point of authority, because this guy is a point of authority in advertising. And all he does is tell you whimsical stories about things that might be true or might not be true. Who's going to fucking fact check him? Right? I'm not saying that he's a liar. Right. I'm not saying that he is bullshitting you, but who is really fact checking this guy? Okay. Who, like who cares, right? He sounds cool. He makes you feel good about yourself, right? You are more willing to just go along with whatever this guy says. If this guy says, like, look, man, like, if you drink your own piss in the morning, it's really fucking good for you, right? Like, it's good for your fucking brain. It'll add an extra 10 IQ points within a year. I'm like, yeah, I'll start drinking my piss just because I've listened to this guy. Of course, I'm not going to drink my fucking piss, but I'm just saying that a lot of people will actually fall for what this guy has to say, because he is the one saying it and nobody's fact checking it.
Much easier, surely, to solve the driverless car problem if governments could agree to say, well,
Like I don't give a shit about the driverless car problem, but because he's talking about it, I'm kind of willing and interested in listening to him. I'm like, all right, go, Rory, tell me about the driverless car problem in the world.
we'll put metal strips down certain motorways, which the driverless car can follow. Or we will change the design of traffic lights so that it is more obvious to a machine as distinct from a human being when it's red, green, or amber. We can have a new thing that needs to be on driverless cars so that other motorists understand that it's actually being driven autonomously. But nobody's doing that. No one's talking to government at all. And the whole assumption is this is a pure private sector problem, which
A lot of the reason why nobody's taking it serious is because they don't have somebody like Rory to champion it. If Rory became the face of driverless cars, okay, I reckon it will be fucking implemented with 1 year, because he has a knack, a great way of fucking telling a story, right? Like, if he had a little bit more ambition, this guy could be the prime minister. This guy could literally rule England, if he wanted to, because like, would you rather listen to him or Keir Starmer? Right? Would you rather listen to him or fucking Boris Johnson? Right? Like, Boris Johnson seems like the idiotic little brother to Rory Sutherland. Okay, Rory Sutherland is very put together. He seems very intelligent, very intellectual. Boris Johnson is just a bumbling fool. I mean, the most embarrassing thing about Boris Johnson was the fact that people called him, the UK version of Donald Trump. It was such an insult, that but the thing is, Boris Johnson never fucking helped himself with it either, did he? Like, it is absolutely out of
one
control.
brand, one company has to solve on its own, with no cooperation from the people who actually manage the roads. And this seems to be emblematic to me of a kind of dichotomy, which seems to have come partly from neoliberal economics, which is that government has no part play in business whatsoever. It mustn't pick winners, it mustn't get involved, it mustn't participate in markets, it mustn't seek to influence markets. Its only job.
I mean, government has its hands in all everywhere, right? Because the fact that governments, especially in more economically developed countries, especially here in the West, like, the amount of red tape you have in place that is stopping from people being entrepreneurial, from being taking risks to start new businesses, to start business ventures. There's so many fucking laws in place. It stifles economic development. It stifles innovation. Okay, which is why a lot of these countries have very stagnant or low GDP growth. Right, economic growth is kind of dead in most Western countries, right? Because they don't produce anything. Everything is produced in China or India, or less economically developed countries all across the world, Africa, Bangladesh, Pakistan, places like that, Indonesia, the Philippines. These countries are really the manufacturing hub of the world. Nothing is being made right? Nothing original is ever manufactured in Western countries because it's just too expensive. There's too much red tape. Governments fucking want a health and safety test on everything that you fucking do before you even attempt to come up with a business. Right, you need to fucking, you need to spend about 10 grand and just doing, all the admin stuff. So, which really takes away the entrepreneurial spirit, which takes away the entrepreneurial ambition to bring about new innovation, to bring about change in the world. So the government has huge contribution in stopping people being ambitious.
Is to sort of get out of the way. Now, in some respects, that's probably not a bad principle, but it's a false dichotomy. Okay? I think there are occasions when government can actually play an active and encouraging role in getting businesses started and off the ground much, much faster by actually, to some extent, intervening in the marketplace. And this precisely is Nicholas Gruen's idea. He's not some sort of weird revolutionary communist or anything of this kind, but what he effectively says, he calls it government as impresario. And his idea is that there's the potential for public-private partnerships in building the public goods of the information age. And as he points out, the West's economic takeoff since the 17th century, yes, there was an awful lot of individual genius, quite a lot of it around these parts of Britain, by the way. You didn't know that actually champagne is effectively a Geordie drink, did you? Long before it was invented in France, there was improvements in northeastern glassmaking which made it possible to ferment wine in the bottle. That was demonstrated to the Royal Society long before Dom Perignon claimed to have got in on the act. See?
I mean, it's little tidbits like that, right? The fact that he knows about the fact that champagne couldn't have happened without Geordie intervention of making that type of wine bottle, champagne bottle, to bring about that type of fermentation so that champagne can be cultivated, right? If you don't know what Geordies are, if you don't, it is a part of England, right, which is literally north east of England, right? Is an area called Tyneside. Literally just above it is the border of Scotland. So it's as far north as you can, northeast of England as you can get. They call it Tyneside. You have Newcastle, you have Sunderland, around those places. The people from there are called Geordie. You know, they call it the Geordie Shore because the coast of it is the Geordies, obviously the people who are from their shore. It is a very unique place in England. It's a very cool place actually. I've been there one time. It's some of the most friendliest people that you ever meet in England. Some of the most welcoming. Some of the really coolest people that you ever meet. Just a good vibes, right? Like a good vibe city. That's how you would describe, Newcastle, Tyneside, or the Geordie Shore, people of Geordie, people of Geordie, the Geordie people of Newcastle. But apparently that is where those types of bottles got cultivated for fermentation to take place, and then those bottles were exported to France, to the Champagne region, and then those people who are making wine ended up making sparkling wine called champagne, which they then bottled up and sold to the world. Okay, and the fact that this guy knows these little bits, these little nuggets of history, these little tidbits of information, already you're like, oh wow, cool, I just learned that about fucking Newcastle and champagne. Like, oh how, like you kind of feel smarter listening to this guy as he's speaking, as he is going on about his business.
Now, a huge amount of it, by the way, in exactly this part of the country. And his point is that central banks, the legal apparatus of joint stock companies, public underwriting of new knowledges, initiatives like the British Admiralty's Longitude Prize, the government can play an active and positive role. It isn't necessarily a distortion, it isn't necessarily an obstacle. And I think we're suffering a little bit with our attitude to government of what you might call the J.R. Hartley problem. Now I suddenly realize that half of you have no idea who I'm talking about. And the other,
Like he says he realizes half of you don't know know. I just realized half of you don't even know who this person is. He knew nobody knows who this fucking person is, right? Like he is placing these bits of these little breaks in his presentation, in the story that he's telling, to kind of like, he's telling the story, and then he has these little breaks, where he makes you laugh, or he makes you think about something, in order to, recalibrate, so your mind, stays focused on his voice. He doesn't want you daydreaming, right? Because he just gave you a nice little story about Champagne, and France, and Newcastle, right? He doesn't want you to now stay there. He kind of wants to, we've talked about that. Let's have a break. Let's have a little laugh. He's like, oh, I bet you half of you don't even know who I'm talking about. And the crowd laughs. The crowd laughs. Okay. Recalibrates. Okay. And then back to the story, right? He is a great, 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 great storyteller, a great orator, right? His skills are immaculate.
Half ago, oh, yes, of course. Okay. J.R. Hartley was a famous advertising person. What we often forget about the wonderful J.R. Hartley campaign, he was using yellow pages to find a copy of his own book. That was the wonderful little conceit in the ad. And it was adorable, the most popular ad of the decade. But the point of the ad, it ended with, good old yellow pages, we don't just help with the nasty things in life like a blocked drain. And the point was that people use, you don't even know what the yellow pages are, do you? Oh, shit. Okay. But people used directories at the time, before there was Google and the internet. People used directories basically if shit happened, but they never thought of using it for positive things. There was, by the way, in the yellow pages, which was a long yellow directory of people you could phone, there was always a single joke, by the way, which is, if you looked up boring, it said, boring, see civil engineers. But
see what I mean? Like he knows that they're in the yellow pages. I believe in America it's called the classifieds, right? Like basically it's this old book that used to basically just have all listings of businesses within your local area, right? Um, and you know, and for a laugh, I guess, they put in a little joke, and then you're supposed to find that joke. If you look up the word boring, they got a little tidbit about it. The fact that he knows about it, he uses it and tells it again like a fucking story. Like this guy could be a stand-up comedian. Like, don't you think? Like, he could be a stand-up comedian if his act was a little bit more funnier. Like, I mean, he makes these little cheesy jokes here and there, and people are laughing, right? Like, and this is supposed to be a serious presentation, right? So it's not the audience, it's not a stand-up comedy audience, okay? But he's able to make them laugh. Like, if he actually wanted to, I believe that he could be a stand-up comedian. This guy could be the next Eddie Murphy. He could be the next, Norm Macdonald, right?
the marketing director, who later became the boss of Yellow Pages, which was a lucrative and powerful position at the time, made this point that everybody's looking to Yellow Pages if someone breaks your window or if your boiler packs up, but no one actually expanded usage into, wouldn't it be fun if? And I think that government is suffering from a kind of Yellow Pages problem, okay? In that it's become just for the nasty things in life, like a blocked drain or income inequality, and people...
Yeah, I mean, like government are kind of there to, especially when you have a political campaign, when you have people looking to be elected into positions of power, to be in charge, of the government. They are, in essence, telling you, these are the problems we'll solve. Okay, like this is what's shit about this country right now. This is what the current administration, the current government who are in office right now, the current people in charge right now, that this is what they're not able to do, and this is how we'll fix those problems. Okay, because the reason they do that is because they're trying to compare and contrast. Okay, it's all about compare and contrast these days. Okay, they are trying to compare, be like, okay, look, this is how shit it is. This is how shit is, and we'll make it better like this. Okay, like this is the storm, and this is the rainbow we'll paint over it. Right, we're trying to make it look good. Right, we'll make things nice and easy. Right, but they can only do it by comparing it to the shit that you're experiencing right now. Right, it's not like they ever come across be like, look, everything's cool right now. Right, the world's actually fine, but we'll make it better like this. Nobody ever says that. Right, they never paint you a picture of a already, because if you think about it, right, like you can't just go from absolute shit to heaven, right? It has to be, right? We're in absolute shit. We're getting a little bit better each time. Now we're just neutral, right? Everything's cool, but you might, you know, everything's, you might be feeling content, but you'll never be, you know, exuberant or happy, right? Um, that is what you build off next, okay? And you know, nobody ever admits about that. Oh, actually, things are actually okay, right? Because if you think about it, right, like the times that we live in now, these are the best times ever created in history, right? Because we have the best scientific advancements, we have the best technology available to us ever. If technology never advanced from this moment forward, it, I wouldn't mind. Like everything's kind of cool. Like what else do you fucking need? Yeah, you know, cancer's about you know, okay, solve cancer, great, right? Solve, you know, Alzheimer's. Okay, solve diabetes. You know, all these health problems, right? Solve the health problems. But you know, like, do we need the fucking metaverse? Do we need, you know, CBDC fucking currencies? Okay. Um, like, do we need driverless cars? Like, I'm fucking happy driving my own car, right? Just solve the traffic problem, but let me carry on driving my own fucking car, okay? And raise the speed limit a little bit as well, right? You know, make it so idiotic people who aren't safe driving, you know, 70, 80 miles per hour, you know, that those people don't fucking get behind the wheel. Do you get what I mean? Like the thing is, right? Okay, wherever you are in the world right now, right, and this really pisses me off. Okay, so wherever you are in the world right now, you know, what is the speed camera? So what is the speed limit in your country, right? So here in the UK, the national speed limit is 70 miles per hour. Okay, and like I'll tell you a little story. I live in a part of England. I live near London, but it's not. It doesn't count as London. It counts as a different city, a different town outside of London. Okay, I'm not going to tell you where because I don't want to get fucking doxxed. But so I live outside of London. That road that drives from where I live to London, okay, it used to be national speed limit. National speed limit being 70 miles per hour. Okay, and you know is a great little stretch of road, right? So for 10, 15 minutes you're just driving 70 miles per hour down this road. When I go on that stretch of road, you know, towards my work, okay, there's no traffic light, there's no traffic ever, so I'm just literally 70 miles per hour, bang, okay, going to work, okay, nice good speed. For some reason, right, last 2 weeks ago they turned it into a 50-mile-per-hour zone, right? There was no need for it, right? There's like the time when I go on it is there's no traffic ever. No other cars are on the fucking road. Okay, even if there are some cars, like there's not enough to cause you to reduce the speed limit. Okay, but why have they reduced the speed limit? Because some fucking idiot who's not intelligent enough to be driving, right, causes fucking accidents. Okay, so that they saw the number of accidents on the road during busy times, and they thought, right, we have to now make this a 50-mile-per-hour road because the people who drive on this stretch of road on this motorway cannot be trusted to drive at 70 miles per hour, right? Okay, like if you were intelligent enough, right, and if you were a policy setter, you'd be like, okay, during peak times when it's really busy, reduce the speed limit, right? You know, outside of those hours, okay, people can do 70 miles per hour, right? That is how it should work. But you know, there's always a fucking idiot who ruins it for everyone else, right? I'd rather, right, make getting your license that much more difficult, right? Because I know I could get that fucking license, right? But make it really, really difficult so that dumber people, idiots who can't fucking drive at 70 miles per hour don't get the license, right? I don't care. I don't give two fucks, right? Because you ruin it for the rest of us. Okay. And this is where depopulation, you know, the fertility crisis that we have going on in the world right now might be a good thing. Most people shouldn't fucking have children, right? Because most of you fucking people are idiots. Most people are fucking, you know, dumb cunts who shouldn't pass on your genetics to the next generation, right? You know, and that might sound horrible, but it's because you're acting like a fucking moron, which is causing people who are driving down a 70 mile per hour road to be now reduced to a 50 mile per hour road, right? It's not fair. It's not fair because and now I have to drive down that fucking road, right? And I'm like, and it's clear, right? And it's like, it's fucking clear, and I'm driving down it, and like at the moment, like fuck it, I'll speed it, okay, I'll go 60 miles per hour. I'm be a bit cheeky, but then you go further ahead, and then you come up across some fucking cunt who's in front of you, and he's refusing to, he's just sticking to the 50 mile per hour speed limit. He refuses to move over to the left, right, into a slower lane, which is also clear, by the way, right, and then he slows everybody else down. Okay, you have to remember, okay, the stupidest people in society, right, the people who cannot be trusted in society, they ruin it for everybody else, right? Think about it. There's a couple of people watching on this live stream right now. Ask yourself this one question: like, are you, do you feel that other people ruin it for you, or are you one of those people who ruin it for other people? Okay, in most cases, it's somebody else who's fucking ruining your life. It's not fair. It is not how society should work. Okay, we should not come down to the the dumbest denominator. Okay, we shouldn't always fucking round down. It should be making it hard for most people to take part in normal society, because dumb people ruin it for everybody else. Okay, and when I say dumb people, it isn't even just about IQ intelligence. It is just about common sense. Some people just fucking lack it. Some people don't have no fucking care, because they aren't able to follow the same rules as everybody else, right? They ruin it for everybody else. Okay, and it is disgusting. It is why the world is going to shit. It's why the world can't fucking agree to get along, right? And you end up blaming it on things like skin color, on sexual orientation, on whether you're male, female, or what political party you fucking support, when really what it comes down to is your ability to fucking just take a step back and just think clearly. Most people are just too emotional. If we were a little bit more rational about our decisions, I think life would be a lot better. Life would be a lot easier. This is why, though, right? Okay, I'm not here to be like, oh, let's change the fucking world. I'm more here. I'm like, okay, yeah, the world's gone to shit. This is what the world's like. I'd rather just go away, right? Buy my own private island, and run a country, run my own kingdom in a way that it is made for intelligent people. Right? I'm only here. I've set up this YouTube channel to find like-minded people who understand what it is that I'm doing, who want to be part of what I'm doing, who I could be friends with. Okay, intelligent people I get on with, to come together to form a new world, a new country, a new land, a new kingdom, where we can fucking be free, where we can live as we like. Okay, and the rest of the world can go fuck themselves. Okay, if they want to go drive 50 miles per hour for 40 miles per hour down the road, because most people are fucking too dumb in that country to do anything, go fucking ahead, right? Because there's places in the world, there's like in Germany, you fucking can drive down the autobahn and there's no speed limit. Okay, in fact, if you are driving too slow, they'll kick you off the fucking autobahn and give you a fine as well. Let's jump into the comments. And the people with no driving intelligence will reproduce at 3 to 5 times the rate of the intelligent drivers. Yeah, I mean, you've seen the film Idiocracy, right? The film Idiocracy is great because the start of the film, it's got this couple, this super intelligent couple, very smart, very intelligent, Harvard educated, blah blah blah, and they're like, okay, we've just graduated. It's not the right time for us to start a family because of the state of the economy. It's not the right time to start having children because we're just starting our careers, and basically they never ever find the right time to have a family. They never ever have the right time to start having sex, to have kids. Okay, and then they get too old, right? Because the man's sperm is too slow, the woman is infertile at that point, she's not producing eggs, so they never have any fucking children, right? The super intelligent couple, okay, have zero children because they take too long to decide when to have it. And you have this idiotic couple, basically this one guy who's fucking three, four, he's got 3, 4 baby mamas, right? Everybody's pregnant, everybody's got 4 or 5 kids, right? And those people, his children, go on to have 4 or 5 kids, right? And basically the world is gets taken over by low IQ level people, and which results in the future in the world 50 years into 60 years into the future, everybody having low intelligence, and the world just goes to shit because you have dumb people in charge of the world, again, which is what this guy, Mog Max United is saying, because the less intelligent people are reproducing 3 to 5 times the rate of the intelligent people, the world is going to go to shit. Okay. Mod Max United gets it, right? He is somebody who is smart. He is somebody who understands what is happening in the world. This is why we need good people like him to be in charge of the world.
People have completely forgotten the fact that government, when well directed, can just make life a lot better and nicer quite easily, if it does it intelligently and if it knows when to get out of the way and when to intervene. And just as proof of this, I mentioned Henry Tudor, a great Welsh monarch. People dispute how Welsh the Tudors really were, but let's face it, look at him, right? Pop him in a rugby shirt, okay?
I mean, yeah, because obviously Rory is Welsh as well. He's saying, look at him. How Welsh does he look? I mean, he just looks like a fat English bloke. All right, he could look Geordie. He could look Mancunian. He looks like every fat fucking English guy. All right, so his joke could have been made in regards to every fucking area of the UK, every fucking area of England, and it would have got a laugh. But he chose Welsh, and he said put a Welsh rugby shirt on him, and everybody laughs.
You know which one he'd be wearing, okay? And he founded the Royal Mail in 1516. The Royal Mail is actually one of the oldest businesses in Europe. Now, the Royal Mail, when it was founded, it was partly controlled by government because they were obsessed with espionage and they were absolutely terrified of people's letters being read by other people. It was kind of like even more expensive than, a kind of premier courier firm. It was basically for rich people and for government people to actually share information. Now, there's a problem with a mail service when only rich people can use it, which is, if you think about it, there's no point in writing to anybody poorer than you because they can't afford to reply, okay? So if if you're a wealthy aristocrat and you wonder if someone's free to sort out the drainage in the lower field, you can send them a letter saying, are you free on Thursday? And they might go, well, I am free on Thursday, but unfortunately I can't afford to write back. For a long, long time, you actually paid for letters on receipt, not on sending them. So you had to make a bet as to whether the letter was news from your son who was fighting in France or an invitation to join a Reader's Digest prize draw. And you couldn't tell until you'd paid the postman to receive the letter. Quite a lot of innovation, by the way.
So when the Royal Mail, when basically the post office in England started, you didn't have to pay to send a letter, but you have to pay to receive it. Okay, so if you were sending one, there was no charge to it. But if you got a letter, and they're basically the post delivery person, right? The postman is basically saying, look, if you want to fucking this letter, you're gonna have to fucking pay me. Okay, and then it was up to the person receiving it. So yeah, I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. It is the person, because if you're the one sending it, you're the one who's showing the intent to fucking give out the information, and the person receiving it, he didn't ask for it, so why should he pay? So again, it's an improvement that the world has made in postage.
Pricing. I looked at the very interesting YouTube history of Netflix. And Netflix, for the young people among you, was actually a DVD rental service before it was a streaming service. And they, in fact, Blockbuster turned down the opportunity to buy Netflix for only $50 million, which was probably a bit of a mistake looking back. But interestingly, that was at a time when Netflix hadn't cracked this, you pay a monthly subscription, you can keep 3 DVDs at any time, and every time you send a DVD back, you get a new one, but you don't pay late fees. That was the idea that suddenly kicked Netflix from being an also-ran to being the mainstream provider of DVD rental. And pricing innovation, the innovation of how you charge for things, is generally an underexplored field, I would argue. But anyway, as I said, Royal Mail was a service for the rich, and there's a limited value to a service which only allows you to write to and receive replies from people who are just as rich as you are, or people also employed in government. And then a man spotted, actually 2 people spotted, what if instead of making Royal Mail about few and expensive, we made it many and cheap?
Yeah, and that making a business available to the many and very cheap, what happens is basically it becomes so ingrained in your life, right, that you have to have it, right? Whether there's where if it's expensive, so only a few people can use it, it's limited, and most people can justify not having that thing in their life. Okay, for example, WhatsApp is free to download onto your phone, right? And what happened is, WhatsApp came, um, you know, at the time, its main competitor was BlackBerry Messenger, right? Because when the new iPhone was launched, everybody had a fucking BlackBerry, right? And the cool thing about BlackBerry was it had instant messaging via BBM, BlackBerry messaging, right? And you share each other's pin and you could communicate to each other, right? Blah blah blah, right? What happened was the iPhone came along, but there was no competitor to it. And the only thing you had to do was go to the App Store and download WhatsApp. And then you could also talk to people on BlackBerry who would also download WhatsApp. Okay. And so some people on WhatsApp, they, so some people who had a BlackBerry will download WhatsApp so they can communicate with the odd people who had an iPhone, but they kept their BlackBerry Messenger because their Blackberries because of the BlackBerry Messenger, so they could communicate with each other because it was instant. It was so much better than text. You could literally talk to each other with ping, 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 and you literally be talking to each other backwards and forwards, right? Just how you would now on WhatsApp. What happened was, more and more people got onto the iPhone, right? They downloaded WhatsApp, right? And now WhatsApp is so ingrained into the way that we communicate. Okay, it's like how else would you message somebody? Nobody sends a text message anymore. Okay, it's like like sending somebody a text message is the same way as sending somebody. You might as well fucking print off a letter and send it to them, right? Like it is the effort of doing it, and it's not instant. There's no urgency to reply to it. Whereas, like if WhatsApp, if somebody sees that you've got two ticks next to it, that they've received it and they read it, they got the blue tick next to it, then they have to fucking reply to you. And if somebody doesn't reply to your WhatsApp quickly, it's kind of fucking rude, isn't it? It's fucking rude, right? And so you can kind of gauge whether that person even gives a fuck about you or not, right? Because what's the worst thing about WhatsApp or texting someone via an instant messenger like WhatsApp? It's being left on red, right? Why is being left on red so bad? Because it basically means that person doesn't give a fuck about you, right? So you can kind of gauge by how quickly that person gets back to you, how important you are in their life, and how seriously they take you, right? And that is why you know the the thing with WhatsApp is because it became so widespread where everybody was using it. Like now, if there was another alternative to WhatsApp to come along, it can't win because everybody's already got WhatsApp, right? So why would you have two, three fucking messengers on your phone when you can just stick to one and you can communicate to everybody, right? It is just that much easier, and we love convenience. We love things that are easy to make our lives possible.
That man was in part Roland Hill. Now, it's worth noting that in London, for example, the 17th century, there were penny postal services, but they only allowed you to send letters elsewhere in London. And generally, you paid to send letters in proportion to the distance they were traveling. So if you wanted to send a letter to Newcastle, you wanted to send a letter to Edinburgh, it would cost you a hell of a lot more. Now, when you think about it, that seems kind of rational, doesn't it? You go, well, yeah, obviously, the further the letter goes, the more I should pay for it. Actually, not really. And the person who had to do the maths that explained how a single, universal, one-penny postal system with next-day delivery could work across the UK wasn't just some random mathematician they scraped off the street. It was actually Charles Babbage. He was, I think, at the time, he may not have been yet, the Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge. He's also known, of course, as the kind of inventor of the difference engine, so in many cases is considered the forefather of the computer. He was a bloody thoroughgoing genius in other ways. Not to say that Roland Hill wasn't. But he made the point that
yeah, because you need, if you're setting up, right, I mean, we'll take the post for granted, right? But if you want to set up a system where having a lot of people, have everybody in the world using your system of sending letters to each other, having that be ingrained within a society, it needs to be cheap, it needs to be quick, and it needs to be easy, right? So as long as you have that three criteria, then everybody starts using it, right? And that is what's called the network effect, okay? Because something is basically like, you have a few quirky people using it like an iPhone and WhatsApp, okay, and basically it becomes so large where everybody's now using WhatsApp. And if you don't have WhatsApp, it's kind of fucking weird. Like imagine, for example, you can send a text message to everybody, okay, you can send an email to everybody, right? But everybody prefers to send a WhatsApp message, right? And imagine if you meet somebody, you're like, oh, okay, I'll send you a WhatsApp, right? And they're like, oh, I don't have WhatsApp. Like you look at them like a weirdo, right? Because you need everybody to buy into the system that we're using, right? Which is the same thing with why Zoom was popular during lockdown because everybody was using Zoom, but now it's gotten beaten out by Teams. Right, Microsoft Teams have come along and beaten everyone out of it, and that is now the best way to have digital meetings, with your cameras, or to have a digital meeting online. All right, everybody uses Teams, where for 5 years ago, everybody was using Zoom because that was a network effect. Okay, everybody had Zoom already downloaded onto their laptop. Nobody really had fucking Microsoft Teams on their laptop. It wasn't even that good. Now, 5 years later, everybody Microsoft Office is a lot better. Nobody uses Zoom. Fuck Zoom. If you're a Zoom user, you are old.
A network, which is what the post is, actually, because of the consolidation of letters between, say, London and Newcastle and Edinburgh, the actual distance traveled by a letter in the company of 20,000 other letters adds absolutely trivially to the cost of carriage. And he said the reason you can have a single universal 1 penny rate, which is a brilliant innovation in pricing, by the way, because it doesn't just make things cheaper, it also makes things really bloody simple. How much does it cost to write to Barnstable? 1 penny, okay? He realized.
So again, so if you make the fucking cost of it uniform, 1 penny, right? Whether you're writing to, the next town over, or halfway across the country, right? Or to the end of the country, okay, whatever the distance is, the cost is the same, right? So you don't think twice about if you have to pay more to send a message to somebody who lives further away. All they care about is that you use the system for communication, because the more people use it, the more it gets ingrained into everyday life. Okay. And I think I listened to this guy do another speech, and he said, for example, like the air fryer, right? Like air fryers are new things now, right? Like, and I've had an air fryer in my house for about 3 years now, 3 4 years, right? Whereas like if you had an air fryer 5 6 years ago, you are one of a very few people within your town, within your country, who had an air fryer. Okay, the amount of people who had one was very small. Whereas like over time is now any person's house that you go into, they've got an air fryer, right? Because an air fryer is actually much better than a microwave, right? Because when you reheat something in an air fryer, the food, it doesn't dry out as much, okay? Whereas it becomes hot and crispy, and it tastes a lot more fresher than when you microwave something, which kind of dries out the food, doesn't it? Right? So if you're an early adopter, right, you're seen as this weird freak niche person, whereas like now everybody has an air fryer, right, and it's seen as standard. However, now you wouldn't go back to not using an air fryer, okay? Like you wouldn't go back to it, okay? It becomes so good that it becomes ingrained into your life, and then you can't ever imagine a world without it. Okay, that is what great technology is all about. Okay, you need to have something, because there was a time before when nobody had a fucking car. Everybody rode around on foot or on horses, and then cars came along, right? And you had the first few clunky cars. Then cars became so good, right, that they couldn't even compete against fucking horses. And now we live in a world where you cannot imagine a world without cars, right? That is how good technology needs to be adopted. It needs to be cheap. It needs to be easy to access. Okay, it needs to be easy to use and work. And once it's ingrained into your society at a fundamental level, right, it basically is ingrained to a level where you cannot go back. You just cannot go back to the old way of living.
That nearly all the costs are actually in the first mile, the sorting, and the distribution. And the distance traveled is more or less irrelevant to the cost of carriage. And it took a genius mathematician to understand what was really network economics. Very, very early example of network economics.
Yeah, and other examples of network economics is Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, right? Like, why are these the biggest platforms in the world? Okay, and why cannot somebody else come along and compete against it? Right? It's very difficult. It's very, very, very difficult for there to be a competitor to YouTube. It's very difficult for there to be a competitor to Instagram. Okay, for there to be a competitor to TikTok, because once these things get so ingrained and the network effect takes on, where basically everybody's using it, and then to move on to another platform doesn't make sense, because everybody's on the first fucking platform, right? Because the network effect has taken place. It's deeply ingrained into the everyday person's interactions with that technology, that it becomes the default way of using that piece of technology. Okay, I'll give you an example for, right, like if you ever watch a stream on Twitch, right? Twitch is the biggest streaming platform on the world, right? Twitch is it's got the most users, it's got the most viewers, most audience, the most content creators on there. Okay, however, there's an alternative called Kick, which has less strict rules. Okay, however, it will never beat Twitch. It will never beat it, because the network effect is like, okay, like because you have to create a account to use the platform, right? You don't want to fucking use an account for like 6 different platforms to watch content. You might as well just have it available for one platform, one account to view several different pieces of content, right? Which is why Instagram is winning, which is why YouTube is winning, which is why Twitter is winning. This is why these things cannot ever be beaten. Okay, they have now so ingrained into our daily lives that they have carved out their own utility within our lives, the way that we interact with that technology.
And by the way, they extended it I think in 1905, because I tried to find out how much Ramanujan had to pay to write to G.H. Hardy in Cambridge. Those of you who are mathematics nerds will know the story. I won't go into detail. Because I thought there was a clerk working in a shipping office in India, in Madras, I think. Okay, Chennai, right, occasionally say Kenya, you've got to be careful these days. Okay, and I thought, wouldn't that be incredibly expensive for him to write to Cambridge? It turned out there was a thing called the Imperial Penny Post for a time, and it cost you 1p anywhere in the British Empire to send a letter, except for Australia and New Zealand, where you had to pay extra. Okay? And that was based on this fundamental insight of Babbage, which is that with consolidation, distance is irrelevant to the cost of carriage, which is kind of counterintuitive and really interesting. Now, an important fact, I think, or 2 important facts about the penny post. One, it didn't make money at first, nor would you expect it to, okay? And there are several reasons why.
So again, like a lot of the time where with especially in modern startups, for example, right? Like things like, like new technology now, if you look at it, something like ChatGPT, right? Or Gemini AI, or Claude. You have all these different versions of AI, their own large language models, LLMs. Everybody's trying to become the number one LLM, right? Everybody wants to become the de facto user, the de facto piece of technology, piece of software that people log on to in order for them to be the person who is the winner in the industry. Okay, so many people are using, they want to be the number one, right? There's many different versions of this technology all around that you can use. Okay, but they want you to sign up. Okay, so if you look at ChatGPT, it's not profitable, right? It's not profitable. You can invest into OpenAI, you can invest into these large language model companies, because they're all trying to win the battle of the network effect. And basically the reasons why these you have such high valuations for these companies is because they're all betting, okay, I think OpenAI will win, right? Somebody else might think Claude will win. Somebody else might think fucking Gemini will win. Okay, so everybody's betting on which AI will win because in today's market, it's all about winner takes all. It's all about being a monopoly. Okay, they don't want to have all these different LLMs, all these different type of AI technology working. They want one single one to be the main industry leader, and then you sign up with that company and spend your money on that company to be the one who to allow that company to work. Okay, so a lot of these companies, AI companies right now that you've heard of that you're using, these companies are not making any money. They are not making any profit, right? They're generating revenue and they're working at a loss, and they're willing to take that loss, right, in order to in the long term be the final winner. So a lot of these companies are actually pumping money into these firms, into this technology, okay, and they might not win. They might all fucking lose in the end.
One of which is that two big forces that drive human behavior are habit and social copying. And if you're trying to get people to adopt a behavior which they've never done before and which nobody else does, it's very, very difficult. There's a lot of friction. If you open a brand new bridge, what's weird is the volume of traffic on the bridge on day one is much, much lower than it is on day 700, because people have to get their heads around anything new. But also it's worth noting that at the time, a lot of people simply didn't know enough people far enough away to write to, okay? People just weren't in the habit of going, that's weird, I could actually write to someone 300 miles away. It took them time to get their heads around this idea. The second thing is the idea, when you think about it, only works at a certain scale, right?
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying there is because like this is 150 years ago that many people, like you usually live within your town, so you'd only know the people that live in your town, and then you might know people in towns around you. So you'd only know people within a vicinity close around yourself. Okay, maybe like in a 50-mile district, right? So people who live like 100 miles away from you, you would never know them because like you'd stick around the same areas that you grew up in. Okay, you didn't venture out before.
In other words, this idea that distance becomes irrelevant to the cost of carriage only works assuming you have enough letters to actually bulk collect letters in London and ship them up the Great North Road in enough quantity so that there are, I don't know how many, I have no clue, 15,000, 20,000 on a single delivery. That kind of requires, in the early days of the idea, it kind of requires it to be a monopoly.
Yeah, and this is what I said earlier, right? It is all about becoming a monopoly, because there's no value in having competition. Okay, and this is important about what I'm trying to do, which is what I'm trying to do with this channel, which is what I'm trying to find, to start off with, right? Because I'm not here like all I want to do is send out the message of who I am, like the shit that I'm interested in, what my personality is, what I'm about, the values I have, the beliefs I have. Okay, and I want to find like-minded people, people who watch my shit and they're like, oh, okay, like this guy seems my type of person, my type of guy. This is a person I can imagine having a drink with him. I can imagine chilling out with him. I can imagine myself being a friend with this person. Okay, I'm looking for 100 people like that, right? Which is why I'm using the internet to broadcast a message all across the globe, right? In the hopes that 100 people in a sea of 10 billion people will watch my shit and they're like, okay, yeah, cool, like, yeah, I enjoy this guy, right? And then we'll connect, right? We'll connect. We'll come together, and we can come and make something unique, right? But I don't want to find somebody who's exactly like me, if that makes sense, right? Because there's no value in it because I'm already like myself. So why would I fucking want to talk to somebody who thinks exactly the same way as I do, right? Because um, you know, if you think about it, like you yourself are a monopoly. I'm a monopoly. What I'm trying to do is bring together 100 people with shared broad values but different personalities, 100 personalities, which is why I call it building 100 kingdoms, right? Because you bring together 100 kings, different personalities, different points of interest, different subject matter experts, okay, different bases of knowledge who can come together, and we can share ideas. I mean, because if you listen to me, right, if you're somebody who watches this shit, if you're somebody who listens to it, like that, you can listen and hear some of my ideas, right? And these might be things that you've never heard of. These might be ideas that you've never really thought of. And just in that way, I am telling you some shit that you've never really thought about. I'm sure there's some shit that you can talk about, okay, that you've never really heard of, right? And then we come together, we can end up mashing and crisscrossing this type of information across 100 people, right, to bring about a new set of ideas, a new level of thinking, right? That is what we are doing on this channel. That is what I'm about. That is what I'm doing. I'm here to bring about 100 kings, to form 100 kingdoms, to bring about a new way of living, a new way of ruling and governing the world. Because the people who are in charge right now, the evil elites, the people who are in charge of a network right now, they're guiding you towards a worse place, okay, a worse, a place where your demise is inevitable, right? Life under the current ruling elites, the way that they are leading us down, is causing massive, massive pain all across the globe. Okay, rising cost of living. Many people are displaced. Many people are losing hope. Many people are losing faith in the system. Okay, when people lose faith and hope in the system, it leads to depression and loneliness, which is why loneliness is such a big, epidemic across the globe, which is what I'm here to try to circumvent. I want to build 100 kingdoms, because the people who might follow you, for example, they might not follow me, right? But if me and you work together, you can raise your kingdom and I can raise my kingdom, and then together you can save your group of people over there, and I'll save my group of people, and at least because we are aligned in our messaging, like we're all heading towards this place of safety, of freedom, of autonomy, which is what we are trying to create to save the globe.
Okay? And that's a problem, because network goods are goods which only deliver their benefits or their economic feasibility at some scale, which means they tend to be loss-making at first. This was loss-making at first. For the first few years, it basically lost money. They had faith in the idea. They had faith in the mathematics.
Again, so it's the same with, like, for example, when you're making content, right? Like when you're making content, at first nobody watches your shit, nobody watches it, nobody comments on your shit. Most people, if they do watch it, they might send you a hate comment, and it might discourage you from making further videos, taking further action, which might discourage you, and then you kind of end up stopping before your success takes off, right? Whereas if you kind of grind it out in the beginning stages, right, and you carry on, because you know that there's going to be a network effect that happens, right? Whereas basically you're going to find a small amount of people who fuck with your messaging, right? Whereas you then get more and more people watching your shit, who then recommend it to more and more people, and then because you found a group of people, like let's say you got 10 followers who really fuck with your shit, yeah, those 10 people are gonna tell 100 people within their own network about your shit, and there might be one person within that group of people, within their group of people, who also will end up following you. And when you have a 10 people doing that, then you find 10 more people, and then you might basically it grows and grows and grows, whereas and it becomes exponential, right? And that is the network effect in essence. Okay, we are just trying to grind it out to find the right type of people. It's not about, because if you really wanted to, right, like you could boost your numbers. I can give you a website right now. You can buy fake followers, you can buy fake views, you can buy botted views. It's so easy, it's so cheap, it's not even expensive, right? Like you could do it. You could blow up your you could blow up your YouTube channel. You can monetize your channel if you fucking want to, with fake followers, fake streamers, fake bots, fake views. But it doesn't matter, because it's not the right type of person watching it. You like, you want the barrier to entry to be so fucking hard for somebody to follow you, right? Because even when people watch my shit, Like I've got like 130 subscribers now, okay, but most of the subscribers are fucking retards because they've seen like maybe like a short and they're like, okay, this guy, this guy's cool, right? But long term wise, right, like, I've only come across like 4 or 5 people so far, within the 130 people that I've got that are really about it. Okay. Who are trying to fucking implement the ideas that I've got, who are trying to implement change in the world, right? Because I'm not just trying to fucking get subscribers and followers, right? I don't want to be the leader of a bunch of losers, right? I'm trying to find people who like who also want to start a network, who also want to start their own group, to be leaders, to be points of authority, to bring about change, right? I'm trying to be fucking encouraging you to be a leader, to fucking grow and be part of the world, to bring about change, to, crown yourself a king. Don't put yourself in a position where you are weak, where you are less than. It's all about, like being friends with the best fucking people in the world, right? And who are the best people in the world? Okay, like 100 kings, the United Alliance of Kingdom, kings that I'm forming. Okay, the Amicis that I'm bringing together. We are the ones who are going to be ruling. We are the ones in control. This is why we stay winning.
Eventually, it paid off. Okay, but the empire, I think the Empire Penny Post never made money, and I think they eventually abandoned it. It was probably done for symbolic reasons rather than anything else. But what that means is there is, when you think about it, a peculiar kind of good, which is a kind of network good, where the value of the good isn't just dependent on a transaction between you and the provider. The other users of the service, the people you can both write to and the people who can write to you, make the service more valuable. So the more people who use the service, the more valuable.
Again, it's the same thing with fucking Facebook, okay? Because so many fucking people use it, it is the data that's being shared, the users who are part of that network, it is what makes it valuable. Facebook, right, is one of the biggest valued companies on the stock exchange, okay, because it's got access to the most users, right? That that is why what a monopoly is. That is why it's a monopoly. That is why it's one of the most successful companies in the world. You, on the other hand, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a monopoly of quality people. Okay, we are after quality. We are after forming a country, right? Because you are trying to be the head of your own country, the head of your own nation, the head of your kingdom, and the people who live within your um you know kingdom, within your nation. If you buy a private island, the people who live in your private island, those people form the network. Okay, it is those people, those soldiers, those members of the economy, okay, of your general population within your kingdom. Those are the valuable assets. Okay, but the monopoly ends up being you, because you are the government, you are the leader, you are the point of authority.
It becomes. Now, the reason that's odd, and this is the point that Nicholas Gruen makes, and by the way, there's always a chance he'll contact me and go, Rory, you're talking shit. But I think I've got Nicholas Gruen right in this, okay? This is how economists typically divide goods. You have private goods. That's something you buy yourself for your own consumption. You consume it, that means someone else can't have it, okay? Now, that means they are excludable, by which I mean you can charge for them, effectively. Can of Coke, okay? And they're rivalrous, which is if I consume a can of Coke, somebody else can't, okay? A lot of goods and most economic thinking probably sits around the realm of private goods: food, clothing, cars, parking spaces. This is from Wikipedia, okay? Then you have non-excludable things, which are kind of rivalrous, but it's very difficult to actually charge for them. Overfishing would be an example of something where there is a limited number of fish, but it's very difficult to stop people overfishing. Okay? Because you don't pay to retrieve a fish from the sea. Air, the atmosphere, fish stocks, timber, coal, free public transport is an example of that point, okay? I suppose you might say a fireworks display would be a good example. Or would that be non-rivalrous? Interesting question. Now, a fireworks display that's crowded, okay? You can't really stop people from watching fireworks because they're up in the sky, okay? And then you have these non-rivalrous things: club goods, cinemas, private parks, satellite television, which are excludable but non-rivalrous in their consumption, in that my enjoyment of Sky.
I mean, he sounds very intelligent. He sounds like he fucking knows this shit. He's reading off a fucking slide, by the way, right? And that piece of information that he's literally reading out to you, he got from a textbook, okay? But because is packaged in this whole presentation because it comes across as this whimsical, funny story, and the way that he presents himself, the way that he tells his story and shares his anecdotes, yeah, you buy into him. You're willing to listen to this guy. Okay, you put your defenses down because he just comes across like one of the most intelligent people that you've ever fucking met, right? And the one thing that I want you to take away from my assessment of this guy is that if you are somebody who wants to be seen as somebody who has authority, who's seen as a leader, you also need to have some type of gravitas. You also need to have some type of way of captivating people's minds, and the best way to do it is by storytelling and being a good storyteller. Okay, so definitely work on your ability to tell stories, work on your ability to be more interesting in sharing information.
Sky doesn't prevent you watching Sky, okay? They're effectively there, okay? And in the same way you have non-excludable, that's free-to-air, non-excludable, non-rivalrous, and those things are free-to-air television, be a classic case, national defense. We all benefit from it, but it's very difficult, other than through taxation, to actually fund it.
I mean, doesn't this guy just remind you of Winston Churchill? Does he not just remind you of Winston Churchill? The way he talks, the way he presents himself, the way he's got his little fat belly, everything about him screams British bulldog, right? That is why I want you to take away that you need to present yourself and be. There needs to be something, you know, almost magical about you, how you present yourself, which is what we're all about. We are trying to get 100 people. Not everybody's going to fucking understand what it is I'm talking about. Not everybody's going to be part of what it is that I'm doing, but the right type of people who need to hear this, who want to hear this, who want to be a part of what it is that I'm trying to do, they will heed my words right now that you need to present yourself in a magical way, okay, in a mystical way. You need to present yourself in a way where people, they drop their guard and are willing to embrace whatever it is that you're saying because of how you present yourself. Okay, and the way that we present ourselves on this channel is as kings, which is why we are diving deep into becoming subject matter experts, being within our zone of genius, being the people who are willing to take risks, to become leaders, to become points of authority, so that we can overthrow the evil ruling elites who are in charge of the world right now, and we will become the savior of humanity, which is what we are all about because we are good people. But that is it for today. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.